I'm going to demonstrate the technique called pointillism in this project. You might recognize this painting. It's called Afternoon at the Grand Jatte, and it's by the artist George Seurat. George Seurat used a pointillism technique. He placed tiny dots of colors next to one another in his painting. He did not blend the colors together on the canvas. The colors blend together when a person looks at his painting from far away. The person's eye sees the colors and their brain blends the colors together to see all the colors that you see in the painting. Typically, artists who use the pointillism technique did not use the colors brown and black. Those colors were achieved when the person looked at the painting from far away. You could do this project in one of two ways. You could draw using some markers, or you could paint using a thick paint like tempera paint or acrylic paint. I'll demonstrate a little bit of each technique so that you can decide which materials might work best for you. So in this project, I'm working with some watercolor markers. I've drawn a sun on a small piece of paper. I recommend you keep your paper small since you'll be making tiny dots of color to fill in your whole entire space, and it will become very difficult to do that for a large picture. I've placed some dots of red and yellow on the outside of my sun, and as I'm coming in, I'm changing that to dots of orange and yellow. That will make the outside of my sun appear a little bit darker and the middle of my sun appear a little bit lighter. And as I come in towards the center, I could even go to just yellow dots in the very center to make the part of the sun that would be sticking out a little bit lighter. So in this technique, the closer you put the dots, the darker the area will appear, and the further apart you put the dots, the lighter the area will appear. Try not to let your dots touch and sit on top of one another. You want the colors to stay pure and to be blended only when the person steps back and looks at the picture from far away. Also, take care of your markers and be kind to them. To make a dot, you just need to press down lightly. You don't need to pound your markers onto your paper. Hammering your markers on your paper will cause them to get blunt ends. Alright, so I think I've got enough dots in the center of my sun. If I were to continue this one, I would do the sun rays, and then I would think about using some contrasting colors in the background. I have one here that I've done a heart on the center, and I'm using yellow and purple dots in the background. The yellow and the purple are complementary colors. They're across from each other on the color wheel. So when a person looks at this picture from far away, the yellow and the purple dots should create the color brown. Remember to pick a color in your background that contrasts with the colors you've already used in your picture. If you use the same color in your picture as you do in your background, it will be very difficult for someone to find your object when they look at it from a distance. And again, remember, the closer you put the dots, the darker the area will appear, and the further apart you put the dots, the lighter your area will appear. So I would continue doing my dots all the way in my background until I have filled in my whole entire shape. And if you want to, you could even explore the idea of having your object cast some shadows in your picture. On this one, my apple is casting a shadow on the table. So I've used, again, my yellow and my purple dots. And I could continue to make some dots to create a table for my apple to be sitting on. Again, I'm using colors that I did not use in my apple and colors I didn't use in my shadow. All right, our other option was to use paints for our project, so I'm going to demonstrate how to use those paints now. I have set up a color wheel for myself with my 3 primary colors, yellow, blue, and red, and I've put my secondary colors, green, orange, and violet, in between them. I didn't have any orange or violet, so I mixed my yellow and my red to make my orange, and my red and my blue to make my violet. I have a Q-tip for each color. When you do your project, think about what colors you're going to need to use in some of your areas. For instance, I'm going to need to use blue in my sky, and I'm probably going to need to use some blue and maybe some greens in my water. So I want to make sure that I don't use those colors too much in the rest of my picture. So as you work, think about what colors you want to use, and remember again that the closer you put your dots of color, the darker or more dense the area will appear, and the further apart you put your dots, the lighter the area will appear. Again, try not to put your dots right on top of one another. You want your colors to merge when someone looks at your picture from a distance. If you do want to have an area appear to be brown, remember your complementary colors, the colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. So if I want that area to appear brown, red and green are complements of one another, so I could add some green dots in between my red dots. And if I wanted my yellow dots to have their complement next to them, I would use violet. And blue dots with orange dots would achieve a brown as well. So as you work on your design, you're going to be filling in your picture with tiny dots of color. It's okay to leave some areas white. For instance, if I wanted to make a cloud in my sky, I could leave those clouds white and paint with my colors next to them. And remember to try to use colors that are contrasting from your shape itself, so that you see your shape in your overall picture. Since I have a blue sky and blue water, I'm going to make sure that I put a lot of green into my water close to my sky's edge. And again, the closer you put your dots together, the darker the area will appear. And the further apart you put your dots, the lighter the area will appear. If you have an edge of an object that you need to have stand out, make sure you put your dots close together on that edge so that we see that object. So for instance, if I don't have enough dots close together on my clouds, you might not see the edge. So there I have a finished pointillism picture. I hope you enjoyed that. I can't wait to see what you guys do.